Okay, Ty, there's a real need out there for schools to update their communications from time to time. A lot of times, budget and resources and time are huge on the list of their factors when considering these things. You know, they only have a limited time, usually over the summer break, which is actually coming up right now. What do you have to say to these people? What kind of solutions or ideas do you have for anybody in this situation who's looking to upgrade their systems without completely just discarding their old DMR systems and legacy systems that they have?
Okay, so a lot of schools currently deploy, as you mentioned, DMR systems, two-way radio systems that are multiple sites connected together, or there may be leasing airtime from SMR network for their wide area coverage for their buses, and they're hitting capacity levels, or they're looking to upgrade, and it's getting expensive. So an alternative and a complement to a DMR system is what's called a push-to-talk over cellular system. It's also known as push-to-talk over broadband or radio over IP. It's a whole alphabet soup of different descriptions, but essentially what these devices are Internet of Things devices that talk over IP networks. So it's like a VoIP phone that's on your desk, but it's a handheld version of that, and it accesses the internet through a cellular LTE data plan. So the nice thing about that is that you don't have any infrastructure because you're utilizing the cellular infrastructure of mobile network carriers like AT&T or T-Mobile. Now you have their entire network footprint. And these devices are just as rugged, just the best, good sound quality, just like a DMR system. But the advantage is that there's no infrastructure for the school to build and install, and basically just put a SIM card into the POC radio, or there's POC smartphone. There's a variety of devices, and they're good to go. And there's also the mobile version with the handheld mic for buses, so that allows all their buses to go anywhere they want. There's no range limitations. Another advantage of POC is that you don't have to get FCC licenses, which in urban areas are hard to get. They're expensive, so that also precludes schools from sometimes expanding their capacity. So push to talk over cellular is a great solution for that. Because it's inexpensive, it's fast to deploy, and they've got basically instant nationwide coverage.
So you're not making a huge investment on infrastructure like repeaters and
exactly.
Towers and antennas
and all of that stuff. So the school they buy the radios, and then they sign up for a subscription plan, which are very inexpensive. SIM cards are very inexpensive. You don't need much of a data plan because voice doesn't use up a lot of data, and these devices, these radios, and they're also, as I mentioned, smartphones. There's also even body cams available for security. These devices can also access the internet through Wi-Fi. So there's a lot of flexibility with these systems. So pretty much every campus, not all, but particularly like a large high school or a particular university, a lot of these campuses have very robust and good coverage Wi-Fi networks. So these devices can basically run on the Wi-Fi network of the school, and then when they're offsite, it automatically switches to the LTE network, assuming there's a SIM card in the device. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way that you can deploy these. You can, as I mentioned, you can subscribe to a service very inexpensively per radio. They run very low prices. What you would pay for a cell phone for a month, you can get a plan for a year.
Wow.
And with Wi-Fi, you don't have to pay for a plan because you're running off your own network. And another flexible part of push to talk over cellular is you can subscribe to a service where you are accessing servers on the cloud, or you can purchase your own POC controller, put it in your IT department, and it's basically a network appliance that these devices access instead of a server on the cloud. They access this device, and you can own your own system. You can have people that are on the Wi-Fi network, on an LTE network, or both, and it gives you a a lot of flexibility in regards to adding users, and it gives the schools the opportunity if they want to, if they want to do a budgetary thing where it's I want to buy the radios and I want to have an operational expense and spread it out. A nationwide program like that would work really well. Or I prefer a capital expenditure where I want to own the system and I make the purchase once. Then buying their own push-to-talk over cellular controller would do that trick. And the nice thing about POC 2 is that it's not an either or with DMR, because you can add POC users to a DMR system with some additional controllers. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way the schools can deploy these. They're less expensive than DMR systems. Their total cost of ownership over 5 years is very low, whether they own it or they pay this a monthly service fee or annual service fee, and that's where dealers like Warner come into play, where you guys can assess the situation, look at their Wi-Fi networks, look at how many remote users they have, and propose the best solution that's going to give them a future-proof radio network that's expandable, that's flexible, and meets their needs and their budget.
That sounds like it really does. It would give them the opportunity to stretch that budget, with their cash flow, because they're just making those, making payments on the plan instead of sinking a bunch of funds into
and you can
big
add
system.
users as necessary. You just you buy a new device and put it on the system. So there's a lot of flexibility, as I mentioned, with that. The devices are very compact. I mean, we've got little radios that teachers can wear on their lanyard. We have smartphones that run Android apps. So if you have administrators or people at the school that are running apps that they communicate with people on, they can use the smartphone for voice communications and business apps. And as I mentioned, mobile.
It's a push-to-talk smartphone, correct? So it's not like you're making a phone call.
It's not a cellular phone, and it's a nice device. They're rugged, good audio quality, way less expensive than buying a cell phone, and your employees have a dedicated device. So they aren't running their own cell phone, hopefully running that app, their battery doesn't die, they drop it on the ground, it breaks. These are very rugged devices and they're dedicated. So, they're not on TikTok. They're on the phone, they're using the device or
Facebook for us older.
Right. They're using it for business purposes. So, there's a lot of flexibility in different types of radios and things like that. So that's really what's and the POC market is exploding right now because the prices are good, the technology is stable, the systems are reliable, the voice quality is good. There's no limits on range. There's no limit on capacity. That's another difference between POC and DMR systems is that you've got a number of channels and so many people can talk at one time. With push to talk over cellular, you can have everybody talking at once in groups, point to point, person to person, and there's no capacity limits with the system. So that's the nice thing about the future proof. Is that it's very expandable.
They can supplement their land mobile radios with the POC, the Wi-Fi, and everything.
So if they need to add some buses or new bus routes that are outside of their DMR range, they can integrate POC with their DMR system.
That's huge. Thanks for watching. To learn more or to discuss a custom solution of your own, contact our experts at WarnerFamilyBrands.com. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe and get more news and views you can use.